Today, we're going to talk about caulking. We're going to look at a few of the different options that are available out there, where each of them are best used, and why. So, let's cue up the intro and get to the show. Now, caulking generally tends to fall into two different categories. You have what's called a bedding compound and then a glazing compound. Now, the bedding compound tends to be polyurethane based, and that's what's used for sealing off in waterproofing the hardware on your boat, whether they're the cleats, chocks, stanchions, pulpits, through hulls, really any kind of hardware that's mounted on the boat needs to be sealed with a good quality bedding compound, because that's really the only material that's the material that keeps the water on the outside of the boat where you want it. Without it, water is able to get underneath that hardware, work its way into the core of the boat, and eventually into your interior, which not cool. Glazing compounds, on the other hand, are silicone based. And personally, the only time that I use a silicone-based or a product or a glazing compound is when I'm working with plastics. Now, generally, plastics are referred to as polycarbonates, and some trade names of that would be like Lexan or plexiglass. There are a number of them, but those are some of the major ones. But that's also the same material that a lot of your port lights and deck hatches and companionway hatch tops, that's the material that's made out of. And silicone is the only material that will bond with polycarbonate. Now, to start off with, we're going to focus on bedding compounds. And the brand that I use the most is 3M. They make a great line of compounds, and I've used them forever. And so that's what I use the most. Now, we'll start off at the top, kind of work our way through their product line real quick. 3M makes three products that I would call very good quality bedding compounds. They have a 5200 as well as a 4200, which unfortunately I don't have shown here. And lastly, a 4000 UV. Now, each of these three products from 3M make excellent bedding compounds, great sealants. However, depending on the application and how you're going to be using them, that's kind of what makes one possibly more desirable than the other, depending on the situation. For example, the 5200 is sold as a permanent bonding compound, and I'll tell you, it is. This is something that I would use when I'm putting something together that I don't ever foresee having to take apart. Two examples that come to mind would be on a sailboat, where you're on a larger sailboat where you actually have an external or a separate keel, where the keel mounts or seals onto the hull. Great application, because you don't drop the keel all that often. So great application for there. The other area would be on the deck hull joint, basically where the top of the boat mounts onto the bottom of the boat. Again, that's an area that doesn't come apart very often, probably never in the boat's lifetime. So those are two areas that would be a great use for this stuff. That being said, I don't use the 5200 all that often, just for the fact that once it's put together, if you have to take something apart, you're gonna break the piece, more than likely. Or you're coming in with a hot knife and you're actually with a hot knife cutting this compound and burning it. And for what I do, that's not what I want to deal with. I don't want to spend 7 hours taking something apart. So the product that I do use the most is their 4000 UV. Now, while the 5200 is a permanent bond, this is a semi-permanent bond. I think maybe a little bit more towards the removable side, meaning that if you have to take something apart that's been, sealed with this, you're going to be able to take it apart without damaging the piece. It still has a pretty strong bond, but it's just not crazy strong like the 5200. In the middle is the 4200. Again, that's the one that I don't have with me here. But that's kind of the happy medium between the 5200 and the 4000. Bonding strength is kind of right in the middle between those two. You'll be able to, that's as kind of a one-stop caulking, that's a pretty good one to go with. Now there's one I guess thing that I want to stress about this is that bonding strength does not have anything to do with the ability to seal or waterproof something. Bonding is bonding. I mean, waterproofing is waterproofing. They're two separate things. The reason I'm mentioning that is because just because something has a very high bond doesn't mean that it's going to seal it any better than the other stuff. It just means that you're going to have a much more difficult time taking them apart down the road when you need to reseal them. Now, as a general rule, bedding compounds have a usable life of up to 10 years of, while it's in use. I generally recommend going through and rebedding your hardware every 5 to 7 years just so that you kind of stay ahead of the game and consider it preventative maintenance, I guess. So in summary, if you're looking to, I guess, do some just general sealing, waterproofing on your boat, my personal go-to is the 4000 UV by 3M. Now switching our focus more over towards the glazing compounds, as I had mentioned, glazing compounds are silicone-based because they are, in my mind, they're what's designed to be used with plastic or polycarbonates. And 3M does make another silicone, marine silicone. However, my go-to or my favorite silicone to use, and again, silicone is typically a dirty word in my vocabulary, but the silicone that I have really come to like is made by Dow Corning, of all things. It's not marketed as a marine silicone, but it is a structural silicone, meaning that this is when they're putting in the big windows in the skyscrapers, this is what they're using. You have a very good working time with it, whereas with most silicones, the time that you have to work with it, to smooth it out before it starts to skin over is very short. For example, on the 3M stuff, you have about a minute or two to work it around and smooth it out before it starts to skin over. You have 10 minutes or so with this stuff. A lot more working time and much higher bonding strength. When I'm doing port lights, I order this stuff by the case, and I love it. As much as it hurts to say, like I said, I typically try as hard as I can to steer people away from using silicone, unless it's with plastics. And if you have to use it, Dow Corning, the 795 or the 791 is also, they're the two silicones that I have really come to like. One thing that I want to mention here when I'm talking about the silicones and with plastic and port lights is that I'll use the silicone for sealing or for glazing the plastic onto the frames, the port light frames, and then I'll use a bedding compound for when I'm actually mounting the whole assembly, the frame and everything, to the boat. The only time I'm using silicone is when I'm physically putting this onto the polycarbonate. That's it. No other time. I'm sure if you were thinking, well, if it works that great, why can't I just use it everywhere? And a lot of people do. And I think that that's mostly because the silicone is, everybody knows silicone. It's what people are most familiar with. But when it's exposed to direct sunlight, silicone does not have the longevity or the durability that these other bedding compounds do. So they actually break down much faster in direct sunlight. And they are a bear to clean off. If you've ever had to scrape off silicone off of a boat, I mean, you really got to work it. I mean, whereas this other bedding compound, when you need to take it off, you can run it over with a chisel, and it all comes up in one nice big ribbon, and it's clean. It's ready to go. Silicone, you'll be working that bad boy for about 15, 20 minutes, and you may or may not have it all off. If you don't have it off, nothing sticks to silicone once it's cured, not even silicone. So again, I don't use it very often, but when I do, this is what I go with, the 795 or the 791. Well, I hope that I've been able to at least help a little bit as far as taking some of the confusion out of the air as far as what compounds to use and for what applications. There are a lot of other options out there, and there are a lot of very good compounds other than these two. These are just my two personal favorites. This was not intended to be a full informational deal. This is just a quick little episode just to kind of help people with get some of the basics figured out so that they can do some of the routine stuff, maintenance on their boats themselves, and get it done right. So again, just to recap, my personal favorites, if you're doing hardware, my bedding compound of choice is by 3M's or 4000 UV. And for glazing, working with plastics, my favorite is by Dow Corning. It's their 795 or their 791. If you have any questions, if you'd want some more information on where a good place to order this stuff from, visit our website, boatworkstay.com, and leave me a comment, send me a message, email, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. And we'll be back again here soon. I'm in the middle of summer right now, or at the tail end of my launching season, trying to get into my summer routine. And if you haven't noticed yet, I've got a little bit of a change in scenery here. We've taken out the boats from the winter, brought in the boats that are here for the summer, and so now I don't have much time available, which is unfortunately why my videos kind of get a little slower during the summer season, because I'm a one-man shop and I work too much. So again, hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back again soon. Thanks for watching.